Welcome back to the Global Business Report on Arise News. Central Bank of Nigeria, Central Bank again, Central Bank's making all the news. They've released the framework for the implementation of the federal government's Family Homes Financing Initiative. Mass housing construction has been identified as one of the key economic initiatives in the Economic Sustainability Plan, with the potential to create a significant number of jobs rapidly. Now, the plan is to fast-track the deployment of 300,000 homes in 36 states and create up to 1.5 million jobs in 5 years. Now, joining me to review the framework as well as discuss their half-year real estate market review is Ayo Ibaru, the Chief Operating Officer and Director of Research Advisory at North Court Real Estate. Ayo, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. So,
thank you for having me.
Excellent, great stuff. One of the initiatives in the government's plan is to boost local manufacturing inputs. If we can take a look at what the plan says. It says that the program is designed to utilize at least 90% locally manufactured inputs and as a result, conserve foreign exchange. Now, in that regard, they're saying that the program will deliberately aim to revitalize local manufacture of construction materials, including doors, windows, and so on. Now, your report, if we take a look at this, you have a list of cost of construction materials. You've got a list there, and I think we also put up. I think we also have a graph of what that looks like. How realistic is the government's plan to utilize at least 90% of locally manufactured inputs?
So thanks a lot for having me, and I know you're always on the clock, so I'll try to be as brief as possible. It's not realistic. 90%, I think, is a target too high, considering that we don't even have the capabilities to use local raw materials. Now, what you need to realize is there's a quantity problem and then there's also a quality problem. And that is one reason why a lot of construction materials are imported. We have a quality problem and then we also have a quantity problem. And I mean, it's always best to build a system before you need it. And unfortunately, we do not have the system in place to hit that 90% target. It's just not possible right now.
All right, thank you for that. So there's in your report, there's a residential section, yeah? It says that developers have continued to rely on flexible payment plans to attract new clients, and then rising construction costs will be aggravated by the Naira's devaluation and the influence of the virus. Yeah. Now, so as a follow-up to the prior question, what you just answered, now, as far as the 90% issue with, or as far as locally manufactured inputs are concerned, how do you make the transition to locally manufactured inputs while you are dealing with devaluation that is costing the inputs you're bringing in more and more for you?
In 2 words, quickly and deliberately. What you need to realize is the way construction works, developers have to deliver every time. They can't afford to make errors and they can't afford to tell their clients stories. And the way devaluation is right now, we know this is not the last time, and we know the Naira, to all intents and purposes, will get weaker at least for the next 2 quarters. We know the economy is taking a hit. And we know that we haven't gotten the formula right to making Nigeria's economy work. So I think the transition has to be quick and it has to be deliberate. And I think to summarize that, we need to prioritize our investments in housing and in related infrastructure.
Great stuff. Okay, so the program also aims to create 1.5 million construction jobs, right? Construction outputs for the second quarter of this year of GDP, it contracted by 31.7%, right? One of the worst performing sectors as far as the second quarter is concerned. Construction, I believe, was in recession in 2016. Since then, it's posted like single-digit growth. You're a developer. How from building 300,000 homes, how does that translate to 1.5 million construction jobs? Is that optimistic or?
So why I like the title of being a developer, because of the amount of money they make. I tend to stick with advisory, which I like to think I understand somewhat.
Okay.
So let me try and unpack what the situation really is. If you look at a 10-year trend, tracking the growth of the construction market, what you would see is that they tend to do well on aggregate. So I don't see them staying on their bum for too long. I think they will get up and I think they will move quickly. They tend to make adjustments usually quicker than most of the real estate sector. So I have no worries about our construction market. I think they will recover. They're already making adjustments into the kinds of things that they're constructing, and I'm aware that there are conversations right now with local and international partners, and there are some works going on the ground right now.
Okay, great. Your report has a chart that looks at the housing deficits distribution in Africa. Nigeria is way out in front at number one. 22 million homes. I think the Democratic Republic of Congo or so is in second place, like 4.3 million or so. Yes. In that regard, this, with what's being built here with this initiative, how does that move the needle? And
that is, what I was hoping we would have discussed earlier. It doesn't even touch the needle because private developers, going by studies, do an average of 100 to 120,000 units developed per annum. This latest document is attempting to do 200 billion, and if you're putting that at maybe 8 million per unit, you're looking at 25,000 units spread across the 6 geopolitical zones. And even if that's annual, come on, for a country as large as Nigeria that understands or that should understand, just how much potential housing has, we shouldn't be reading this document. This is what, not to be disrespectful, but students in tertiary institutions should be reviewing. If you get what I mean.
Thank you for that. Okay.
Now, sorry, just to add.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
You do know that Nigeria's growth rate, population-wise, is 2.8 to about 3%. That means every year we add 6 million people, and you're building 25,000 houses. I don't understand who does that.
So it definitely needs to be accelerated. On quality of life, right? Program is expected to house up to 900,000 children and adults. With, according to them, there it is, 900,000 children and adults on low income with direct impact on health, education, and economic outcomes. Most of these would currently live, or these folks, they currently live in informal settlements with shared facilities in unsanitary environments. So my question is this, Ayo, as far as being able to maintain these homes, if and when they're built and they move in there, electricity tariffs, cost of living, basically. What's your read on how that could be achieved? How long, when you build these homes for these folks, how long they can maintain the cost for them and so on and so forth?
So I was in a conversation with, a few government officials yesterday, and what the experience is once you get these rural dwellers into homes, you've improved the value of their land. Give them 6 months, they will move further into the hinterland and either sell or lease out or pawn off, the so-called housing that you've given them. So once again, the government has to call on the relevant stakeholders and get serious. I mean, come on, this is 2020, right? Get serious, get the relevant stakeholders and get them into a room and hash out a plan that is respectable, a plan that understands the gravity of the problem. So, and if you tie this to where the economy is right now, people are barely making it on a day-to-day, right? I mean, when you look at the first lockdowns that we had, people couldn't stay at home for up to 2 weeks. So that's a standard economic problem. And we have to get our economy right. And the way it is, we don't have any other choice.
All right, let's switch gears away from that initiative now to residential matters. I saw something interesting in your report. You cite a recent survey which indicated that most residential occupiers in Lagos are renters, with only 29% confirmed to be homeowners. Yeah, we've highlighted that. You also mentioned that high-end areas in Lagos, Ikoyi, Victoria Island, Banana Island, and in Abuja, Maitama and Asokoro have the most luxury houses, even though a steady proportion of them have been empty for the last 5 years. So I'm going to lump 3 questions together. Does it make more sense to own, or rather to rent rather than to own? 2, why are we seeing more renting and ownership? And then 3, if there's this high amount of empty homes over the last 5 years, the supply-demand dynamic, shouldn't the prices of those homes be coming down?
You know what? Those questions in and of themselves can take an entire interview.
Right.
So let's take them one by one.
All
Let's
right.
have the first question and then we'll take it from there. Let me have the first question again, please.
Is it make more sense to rent than own a home?
So it depends on where you are in life. When you're starting out, the recommendation is to rent, and then as you move on, you save, you invest, you get to the point where you can buy. We did a back of the napkin study, and in Nigeria, that age comes to around between 37 and 45. You should be able to, I'm not saying it's a must, but that's generally when most people are able to buy their own homes in a decent, environment. And in Lagos here, you're looking at anything circa 35 million. So yeah, I would recommend that you rent first while you get the other areas of your life together.
Great. So with the home ownership, or the luxury home being empty for about 5 years, why is that not bringing down prices, supply demand?
Okay, so we're talking about Ikoyi and Parkview. Parkview, if I might say here, is the most expensive per square meter in the entire West Africa. So it's a question of demand. When you have a house in Ikoyi, most likely you have something else in Abuja, you have something else in New York, in London, so you can afford to keep your house empty. What you also need to realize is when you take a trend going back 5 years, what you will realize is vacancy rates in Ikoyi have actually dropped. So we had at some point 40-45%, and right now we're at about 20%, which means 1 in 5 homes is vacant, at least by our methodology. So it's a question of demand, and if you can afford to keep your house empty, it's yours. That the house is empty doesn't mean it doesn't have an owner. It just means it has an owner who can afford to keep it empty. So yeah.
All right, I have to skip ahead here. I only got two minutes left with you. I want to talk about the real estate sector, real estate output. Yeah, it's still in recession. That is generally looking at real estate output for GDP. Yeah, there it is on the chart. I mean, you can see that big drop there. It contracted by almost 22% Q2. How do we get real estate growing again? That's my final question to you. In a minute, if you can.
I will try and do it in less than a minute. You have to prioritize housing. That's it. You have to prioritize housing. Their report suggests that 5 jobs are created by 1 house built. That's wrong. It's at least 10, right? And I think it was a study I read not too long ago where they drilled down the accelerator of Nigeria's economy to housing. It's a no-brainer. It's a low-hanging fruit. I don't know what other name I can call it. You have to prioritize housing. It's just 2 words. Prioritize housing. That's it. And what you will find out is the day government does it, we will wonder and ask ourselves what took us so long.
Ayo Ibaru, COO and Director of Research and Advisory at Northcourt Real Estate. Thank you so much for taking us through that report.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your insights. Sir, you are watching the Global Business Report here on Arise News.